stuff that keyword into as many titles, as many descriptions, and as many times as in that paragraph as you can possibly make it fit. Please don't do that. Hey there, my name is Jordan Snyder, CTO and co-founder of Token Creative Services. Welcome back to our next SEO 101 video mini-series. We're going to be covering a whole bunch of important topics that help businesses of all shapes and sizes make the most out of their SEO. Today, we're going to be talking about something that every one of us use every single day without even thinking about it. It's the way we ask questions, it's the way we search for problems, it's the way we kill time when we're bored. Today's episode is going to be talking about something near and dear to all of our hearts, keywords. Okay, so you're probably wondering why all the fuss about keywords. I use them every day, they're no big deal. But honestly, I think a lot of us, and especially business owners, potentially take keywords for granted. Because as I had just said, keywords are truly the way people search in this world. Any average digital person in 2021 is likely going into Google almost the first time they hit the internet and looking for something. And what that person is looking for is extremely profound, and I think it's something that's easily overlooked. So a keyword and a key phrase can really mean the same thing, because in modern day technology, Google is getting good at really understanding those longer sentences, which is awesome because in the older days, we used to have to type in 2 or 3 word phrases that didn't really make a lot of sense, and they were very broken English. But in a modern type of landscape, keywords represent long compound strings and several words at a time. And as I mentioned, if keywords are the way that people are searching for the world, then understanding how users are searching for brands and how users are searching for problems and solutions can help you as a business owner get that slice of the pie. So the idea is pretty much this. You want to start off by trying to understand your users. You want to try to ask yourself a question and put yourself in the shoe of those users. How are those people searching for your brand? What are the questions that they're asking? The idea as a business owner and a marketer is that you want to find keywords that are things that users are actually typing in. So you might think, of course, if lots of people are searching for a particular keyword, that's the keyword that I want to try to optimize my website for. And normally I'd say, yes, that's a great idea. A large volume of usage or searches for a keyword is usually a really good sign that it's going to perform well. But we'll get into some of the different aspects of that in the volume and the competitiveness of keywords later. But what I want to highlight is that you want to think like a user. Think about the questions that they're asking for. Think about what they're looking for, or maybe even the way they ask those questions. So when you're working on an SEO project, keywords are the foundation and a really big place of where you start. So as a marketer, we spend a lot of time on the research and the competitive analysis of keywords, but it always starts with what keywords do you want to rank for? And sometimes you as a business owner, if you ask yourself that question right now, you might not know. And that's okay. I think a lot of times going through the exercise of researching for keywords and using tools that'll give you a demo of in just a couple minutes, you'll see that, sometimes we don't exactly know the right answers or think the same way other people do. And so there are tools out there that can help us see potential keywords and see their potential value. But as I had mentioned before, keywords are meant to represent the kinds of things that people search for or the kinds of questions that people ask. So perhaps I'll use a really easy example and talk about a jewelry store. So if you were a men's jewelry store, you might be inclined to pick a keyword that says men's jewelry. No problem. That's not a bad idea. I think you get your overall niche, okay? And I think you can get the right kind of audience. But think about it. Not a lot of users are simply going to be typing in jewelry or men's jewelry. That type of keyword perhaps describes the type of product that you have, but can you imagine how many brands there must be out there that are looking for just the keyword jewelry or men's jewelry? That's really, really, really broad. And still, even as a male, if I were searching for jewelry, I don't think I would simply type in men's jewelry. Again, think like a user. Think about how you would search for that. I know if I were looking for a product of men's jewelry, that I'd probably look for something a little bit more specific or something to my own personality. So for example, I might like boat jewelry, and I might type in men's boats bracelets. I might type in men's luxury watches or something like that. And so traditional keywords aren't always the best idea. And I'll show you a couple tools that'll help you validate that. But think exactly like your users. Think about what they're looking for when they're trying to look for a product that you might have. So empathy exploration can be a little tricky sometimes, so let me shoot you just a couple questions that might help get your mind thinking in the right direction. So put your business owner hat on and ask yourself these questions about the different types of people or the things that people might be searching for. And if you can know and understand these questions, then you'll probably have a really good chance at picking the right keywords for your business. So a couple of questions to explore for yourself are, well, first off, who is searching for these things? Next, you might ask, when are they searching for this? Is it day, night, or seasonally? How are they searching for these things? By that I mean, what questions are they asking? Why are people asking about these things? And where are those users potentially located? That's really the 3 W's in the who, what, where, when, why, and how. But if you can understand that, then you'll have a really good shot at picking some solid keywords for your brand. Okay, friends, so asking ourselves empathetic questions about our users is a great way to get started, but without hard facts and numbers around how these keywords are actually going to do or how they could potentially do, we're really shooting in the dark, honestly. So there's a lot of tools that we can employ for ourselves as marketers, as any business owner could, to try to scope out what keywords really might look like in terms of search volume and overall competitiveness. So I'm going to be showing you 2 tools today. The first one is a fantastic free tool that I encourage everybody here to go and check out first up. It's the Google Ads Keyword Planner. I think we've seen this all a lot before. As an industry standard, this has been around for a long time, and I think it remains a commonplace that everybody likes to use. So I like to use Google Keyword Planner, starting off with a couple seed keywords. So when I say a seed keyword, I'm really talking about, something that's in the ballpark of what I want to rank for. Sometimes when I ask my clients what words they want to rank for, I'm really trying to suss out some of their industries and their niches so that I can come back to them with a prescriptive set of keywords that I know will fit well into their industry. So we're going to run with that jewelry store example, and we're going to use the keyword planner to potentially find some cool words for our brand. So right out of the gate, I just want to discover some new keywords, and honestly, our search is going to be really simple. I'm just going to say that I'm a jewelry store. I'm going to say that I'd like to type in, let's go all the way, and let's say men's jewelry. Let's go ahead and get results. So what the system is going to do is, first of all, grab that keyword that we put in as the seed, and then it's going to go ahead and comb Google's ever-growing database of search terms and the search volume to come up with a list that might be helpful for us. So right out of the gate, as soon as I typed in men's jewelry, I got back over 1,700 results of different keywords and key phrases that we might be able to look for. So I'm in a table. So I got back one giant list that I am now able to scroll through thanks to Google and all of the information that they provide to us. So what this is indicating to us is a different keyword, and in line with that keyword, the average monthly searches that it might see, the overall competitive market of it, and then some Google ad items there in case you were an advertiser looking to understand what are the cost per clicks going to be for this. So for the most part, we're just going to focus on average monthly searches and competition. So as I mentioned before, when I type in men's jewelry, I'm looking for some inspiration around what the best words might be for this. So I like to sort by average monthly searches because when I do that, I can see the keywords with the most potential right at the top of my list here. So immediately you can see here from the inspiration men's jewelry, I start to get some men's specific items that might be a little bit more niche or helpful for my brand. So men's rings, that's a great idea. So instead of just something all-encompassing like men's jewelry, we're getting into rings. That's pretty specific. Look at that, getting even more specific, men's wedding bands. I like that even better. We're getting into a space now where there's a very specific need and a very specific set of audience members there. Some of these go back and forth, of course, bracelets, earrings. If we scroll potentially a little bit further down here just to look through the list, so we get into the silvers, golds, and tungstens. Those kinds of things are always great, so I suppose depending on your actual product supply, some of this may or may not work for you. So depending on your industry, of course, you're going to see a huge amount of different results. There's lots of potential search volume in jewelry, which is reassuring to me as a business owner to know that there's a lot of potential buyers out there. So right out of the gate, I would probably want to start my look at the highest average monthly searches. Because again, if I'm targeting for a keyword that's got a lot of search volume, awesome. That could mean a lot of people coming back to my site. But the other issue with that then, of course, is going to be if I'm picking something with low monthly searches, even though that might be less competitive, it's going to be much less valuable overall because there's far less people coming. Now, I'll say that with a caveat, of course, because if you're selling really big ticket items, things that are really expensive, the opposite of that might actually be true. So anyways, I think average monthly searches is a great indicator just to kind of see what's out there and to see what you could sort of get with that. Now, of course, I think another important factor, if not even more important factor, is the overall competitiveness of keywords. So I think for the purpose of Keyword Planner, we really just get like a low, medium, high type of range for this sort of thing. But another competitive index value over here is a numeric value between 0 and 100 that might be more helpful, where 100 is something a little bit more competitive. So, of course, things that are going to be more valuable in terms of search volume are going to be more competitive. And I mean, I think that just makes sense. So I'd like to say that there's an even sweet spot between picking your keywords. You want to find something that does have a high average monthly searches, but something that isn't just really difficult to rank for. If we're going to be fighting for something like, let's say, men's rings, it's got a great search volume, true, but with that high competition and a 100 out of 100 on the competition index value there, I might not even bother for that one because realistically, I'm trying to stack rank against people like Tiffany & Co. at that point. Really, really big brands. So something in that range might not quite be for me. So maybe I even flip this sort and look for things that are a little bit more low competition. So I think I'm going to have a problem on the other end of the scale now where I've got items that are, really low search volume but have almost no competition. So you kind of want to make a trade-off there again, depending on the kind of products that you're selling and how expensive they are. But you can see that, we get very, very specific. Ideally, you want to get this niche and you want to get this specific, but I don't think that I would ever recommend a set of keywords that really only had between 10 monthly average searches. So I don't think that these are necessarily great examples here, but these kinds of keywords are probably going to be the area where I am more successful. And depending, if you've got a really niche brand, this might work really, really well for you. So I would, again, want to find like a happy sweet spot between where I'm starting to seeing some different volumes here and potentially things that, I'm not afraid to play in a competitive space. Let's just open up the search here. I think everybody's afraid to compete sometimes, but no, see, once we get into some of these spaces here, this would be a really, really good one right here, I would say, almost right out of the gate. Guys with nose rings. I think that's kind of funny, actually. In the keyword world, we'll start to see a lot of synonyms. So guys, men's, boys, those kind of words can be used interchangeably. For the most part, Google is smart enough, of course, to know when we mean one of those things, but it's going to try to recommend similar words there as well. So that's great. By getting out of the word men's, it seems like we've really reduced the overall competitiveness of these keywords. So that might be something really valuable. Just avoid the word men's or try to find a synonym for that, and you might be able to find a lower competition keyword. So I'd probably want to stick around to the medium range here. I think it's going to take a little bit of work to rank on here, but nothing too intense. So I like this. Again, depending on the products that I sold, some of these might be a little bit more hit and miss here, but I really like what I see now. I really like these ones, 100 searches to about 1K searches a month. That might be a little bit low still, but I think we're starting to get into more of an acceptable range. I don't know if I would ever really recommend a 10 to 100 search volume type of keyword like this. That looks really good. I don't think we're going to find something with higher volume. Oh, no, we do. Okay, so gay man ring, that's interesting. Okay, so just a different way of saying similar stuff, and we get into a different market, so that's awesome. If I sold those kinds of rings, this is definitely the kind of keyword I would use. So it's really helpful to see, and you could spend hours and days just going through these different types of keywords. Google's really awesome, and it's going to give you some keywords to try to help you broaden your search as well. It knows right out of the gate men's jewelry is very general, so I might want to say open up my store a little bit and we can add some men's clothing there as well. So I can diversify my mix as well. So the search results that I get once they refresh will be a mixture of both. I'll start to get a little bit of jewelry and I'll start to get a little bit of clothing stuff there as well. And you can get crazy. If you are really not sure what kind of keywords that you really want to look at, just start here. Throw a couple ideas in as your seed keywords and just use the tool and see what buffs out. What's really awesome about this tool, and the last thing I'll spend my time here doing, is we've got some refined keywords options here. So maybe in the example of my men's jewelry store again, I know that if I ever try to rank for anything to do with one of my competitors, like let's just say Tiffany & Co. again, I've probably got zero chance of being able to outrank them for their own brand word, or maybe I just don't even want to be associated with anything to do with that brand. Because jewelry is a bit of an ambiguous term, and it could mean a lot of different brands here. Google tries to help us as marketers try to refine those different types of keywords that we use and perhaps identify what's a brand, what's not, and try to refine our searches a little bit more. So right here, in the example of, well, in this case, men's jewelry and men's clothing, you can see here that I'm going to be able to filter my results. And so the first example is for brand stuff. So of course, depending on how you want to play your field, depending on how strong you feel with competitiveness, you might want to uncheck anything to do with a brand keyword. So in this case here, all of the brands have to do with, of course, all of the major clothing companies. And, these are big companies. I don't have a hope of competing against them. So I'm probably just going to turn those off just so I don't see those types of keywords. Similarly, Soar, those were brands. These are different brands, but perhaps for the retail space. I might be okay with this, Amazon, Walmart, these different people may sell my products, so I'm okay to keep those in there for now. And then, of course, here again, if I do or don't sell different types of brands or perhaps a different type of my product, it's going to come in there. And so, just kind of going down the chain, different keywords will have different refinement options, so I would definitely recommend play with what your industry gives you here. Colors are great there again as well, and of course, if I've got some other things, if I wanted to, further refine my results, maybe I don't do anything to do with weddings at all, I can get rid of a good 270 keywords out of my results there, and see how this plays out. So let me just go ahead and say that when you're working with the keyword planner, you're really talking about numbers. And literally, as you can see here, in the short amount of time that I actually spent in just 2 keywords, I've got almost 4,000 suggestions that Google's given me. And it's a lot of data. So if you're an Excel person or a Google Sheets person, honestly, I would just recommend download your key ideas, throw them into an Excel sheet, and try to find that right even mixture of a high average volume search and something that you feel you can compete in pretty well. Okay, friends, so I've got one more demo to show you, and in the SEO world, you'll often find that there's a lot of really, really good tools out there. SEMrush, Moz, Ahrefs, they're all fantastic, and they all do a flavor of the same thing. We really like Moz here at Token, so I'm going to show you a little bit about one of their free tools that we have with a free account of our own, and it's a Keyword Explorer, of course. So what we're going to do today is just use their free tool just to try to take a look at keyword volume again. Back in a similar mentality, I'm a business owner, I'm a jewelry store owner, and I'm really just trying to know what kind of keywords I should rank for. So let's just go ahead and type in jewelry. We're just going to type in a really basic seed keyword and take a look at what's out there. So we're going to start to see similar data that we saw in the Google Ads Keyword Planner here, but slightly different, of course. And again, we might see different numbers between each of these tools. They're all very relative, but at the end of the day, these tools are doing slightly different things with their own bots and systems. So I think the values are relative, but we take them with a grain of salt. So right out of the gate, I can see when I type in jewelry planner, I get a lot of information about it here. So right at the gate, I can see average monthly volume. That's really, really cool. So just generally speaking for the keyword, lots of volume. And I really like the graphics with Moz as well. You can sort of see an indicator in terms of how they even think we're doing with this word. So overall, decent monthly volume. We're about midway, I'd say about 60 or so % on that scale. So that's not too bad. I'd still consider this. Overall, looking at the difficulty, it's again a 61 out of 100 scale, so that's not bad, I would say. It doesn't seem too difficult. Next up here is the organic click-through rate. CTR being click-through rate, that typically means if I see this, what is the rate that I will actually click on that and go through? 90% is really good, so that's a really high number, which means that if somebody's seeing one of these keywords organically, they're 90% likely to click through. That's awesome. And then priority. So priority is a custom-made metrics by Moz that kind of hashes together the organic click-through rate, the difficulty, the search volume, and it gives it a score on a 0 to 100 in terms of, does it really recommend that you go for that word? We're getting a pretty good indicator here, honestly. So I know this is a competitive space at the end of the day. These kind of metrics kind of help me inform my decision. So what I really like about this tool as well is that it starts to show us keyword suggestions and the SERP analysis. So I'll quickly open up both of these just so we can take a look. So keyword suggestions is almost like using the Google Keyword Planner again in a slightly different way. So there's lots of different ways that I could filter for this. I'll keep it simple. Back to the basic keyword of jewelry here. I can start to see some of the keyword suggestions that it might make. What I like about Moz is it seems to be a little bit more descriptive in terms of the average monthly search volume, so it's a little bit more tactile for me to work off of. So again, just like I had in the last tool here, I'm given a plethora of different tools that I might be able to work with. Jewelry store near me. Terms with near me in it are really popular and always dynamic. So those kinds of things can be a little bit difficult to rank for because they're always relative to locality. So even if you were try to ranking for something that said jewelry store near me, remember that depending on where that user is actually searching geographically, Google might disregard the fact that you try to rank for those keywords because near me is a dynamic phrase. But similarly so that I would have done with Keyword Planner, I'd probably filter, check out each of these words independently perhaps, and just try to get a sense of, what is the potential with these different kinds of words? Or, if I were to try to target these keywords, what could that do for my business? And that's, I think, ultimately what we're trying to do here. We're trying to validate the sales potential and the revenue potential for these keywords in an SEO project. Okay, so now I'm going to flip back to the original screen here, and we're going to look at something that we haven't seen yet, and that's a SERP analysis. So SERP just means a search engine result page here. So the idea is that Moz is going ahead, taking the word keyword jewelry, putting itself in the locale of United States, and saying, okay, what does that search engine result page happen? Like if somebody in the United States types in the word jewelry, what are the terms that they're going to see? And so, of course, this is going to be really helpful for us. I mean, I could just Google it and see something if I were in that region, or I could try to have a bit of an analysis from Moz. So what I like about this, of course, is that this is really good for some competitive metrics here. So, back into my jewelry store here, if I were trying to get a sense of how my competitors were doing or what the challenge level was going to be like for me to get on that homepage, I can use this as almost a vetting process. So I start to see a couple different data points in here. Page authority and domain authority are relative to, the authority and the reputation that Google would give this brand or this business. The page authority being, in this case, the jewelry page on this website, and the domain authority being Tiffany.com. So this is really, really good. A 74 is a very strong score. So when I see that, I get scared away a little bit because, it's really difficult to compete with such a big brand, and they've been at it for so long that they have a rock solid authority, and that makes a lot of sense. What we see down here is a backlink profile. So essentially what we're trying to take a look at is all of the different people or the different links all over the world that have linked back to Tiffany & Co. 37,000 backlinks is fantastic. So they're doing really well. And of course, backlinks are a really important aspect to an SEO strategy. If you don't know what backlinks are, check out our other video. So again, I'll just kind of keep scrolling farther down here. Etsy does a fantastic job, of course, as you can imagine. I find marketplaces, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Etsys, they always have a rock solid authority there again. 92, I almost haven't seen any other that high. That's really, really good. Of course, because Etsy is Etsy, they've got like millions of people linking back to products and services. So rightfully so, they have about 1.5 million backlinks. And, similarly so, I could just make my way through down these pages and just take a look at what my competitors are doing. This might be a little bit more difficult to understand who somebody who's not trained in the area of SEO, and maybe these metrics don't make a lot of sense to you. That's okay. This is just something, remember, to get your ideas working, to get your creativity flowing. It's okay that you might not know what you're looking for, but by looking at something like this or just taking the time of day to search for it, you might be able to save yourself a lot of grief by either picking the right keywords or potentially avoiding something that you never had a hope of ranking for. And as I had mentioned earlier, Moz is a free-to-try account, so I would seriously encourage checking out anything that they have to offer. They have some really, really cool tools here. And so that's about it. I would say that, as an independent business owner, using both the Keyword Planner and the Moz Keyword Explorer tool here, I probably have everything that I need to get started and make my website awesome with all of these keywords in mind. Okay, so we're going to bring our video home now and say, what the heck do I do with those keywords? So remember that we really wanted to try to be empathetic about our users. We wanted to know who they were, what they were thinking, what they needed, what their challenges were, and hopefully with that kind of information, you know enough to position yourself as a solution to any of those problems, or perhaps just to put your product out there. And so now you've got your keyword. You've got a sense of competitive landscape, knowing that you've probably got a bit of a gap to fill, and you've got a sense of how many users you might see when you start to rank on that first page of Google. So I want you to feel a little bit excited because things are starting to come together now. Now comes the fun part, which is to start to optimize your website. And when I say that, I do mean a little bit of the technical development sense as well as a marketing sense. So right here, I'll go ahead and that'll say a lot of business owners might not be comfortable making some of the changes that I'm about to recommend, and that's okay. But first things first, make sure that you are not making any changes to your website that you do not completely understand. As a web developer and as a team who offers support for dozens of clients, I always preach just practice caution. If you're not sure, work in the context of a staging environment or ask your own marketer or your web developer team if you have one. Okay, so when I say optimize your website for these keywords, I can mean a lot of different things, and I'm probably going to forget to mention even a bunch of them here on now. But the idea is this. So you've got a keyword, or you've got a key phrase, a sentence, a couple words that are the things that people are searching for. It makes sense to your brand, and now you want to optimize your website for those keywords. And that's awesome. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the keyword and safely and naturally put it all over your website. And when I say all over, I seriously mean all over. Part of what Google wants to do is try to understand context and relevance in websites. So when it crawls your websites, it's looking at like everything. It's looking at the titles, it's looking at your headings, it's looking at meta descriptions, it's looking at the actual content, it's even both looking at the images and the file names of those images. It's crazy, right? Google does a little bit of everything. Kind of freaky. So when Google ends up crawling your website, it's actually looking for different keywords and key phrases to help orient itself. It looks to file names, it looks to your content, and more importantly, it looks to your titles and the URL structure of your website to try to make sense of it. It needs to know, what are you talking about? Is your website legitimate? Is it spammy? Are there other people that trust it? A lot of different things go into that ranking factor. But you want to add keywords all over your website so that when Google starts to crawl your website, those keywords come into play and it finds those. And that is a bit of the secret sauce. So if you knew SEO maybe several years ago, the traditional model would have been to say, take men's jewelry and put it in a million places, stuff that keyword into as many titles, as many descriptions, and as many times as in that paragraph as you can possibly make it fit. Please don't do that. Nobody likes that, and it's very archaic and it's very unnatural. That type of thing that I was talking about there was called keyword stuffing. Google, of course, has grown and knows to avoid keyword stuffers and even penalize them. But you want to make this very natural, right? You have to play an even mixture of knowing that the keywords are the things that people are using and letting Google know that you have answers to those questions on your website. So definitely don't stuff your keywords into your website. Make it organic, make it natural, make it so that when a user reads that website, it's actually human readable and not meant for a robot. Now, some of the quick areas that I might suggest optimizing your content is even just in your site title and your description. When you open up a browser tab and you click on that top tab, you can usually see a little site title and then perhaps a little description that more than likely gets cut off a little bit. That's where you want to start to put some of your keywords. Definitely put your brand, put your name in there, put your slogan, but if you can, start to put a keyword in there because that title and that meta tag there, that's a really important factor for Google. Similarly so is your URL structure. So when you type into a web browser, you usually see something like tokencs.ca. What actually happens in that domain can be important. If you can get a keyword into your domain name, that's great. But everything that happens after the tokencs.ca, there's a slash, then usually just like a bunch of other words, phrases, page names, whatever. Those are the types of things that actually matter. Those are identifiers to Google. Different URLs are sort of like the ID for a page. And so what you want to try to do is put your keyword in that URL there as well. Now, when it comes to your on-page stuff, this is where you can have a little bit more fun with it. So on any given page, you more than likely have heading tags, maybe a bunch of different headings. In the web world, getting a little bit technical here, there are different levels of heading tags. H1s, H2s, H3s, they go on and so forth. The rule of thumb is that you really only ever want to have one H1 tag on your website. And having your keyword in that H1 is sort of declaring to Google that this is the context and the topic of this whole page. And that's awesome. Google really, really cares about that first heading. So you really want to try to make sure that your exact keyword is right in there. But for everything else after that, use H2s or H3s and keep it hierarchical. Keep those numbers in order. Don't go H4, H6, H3. You want to try to keep it chronological in terms of the numbering sequence. But in all of your other headings as well, it's good to put your keyword in there as well. Now, because I want to try to avoid keyword stuffing, because that is never anything that we would recommend somebody do, think about different synonyms as well. If I were optimizing a page for SEO, I might use search engine optimization and SEO synonymously. And so that's a fun little way that I can break up the monotony of my content keywords on my page and still kind of have the same context and relevance. Even if I optimize for the specific keyword, search engine optimization, Google still knows ultimately that SEO is pretty much the same thing, and therefore users are probably talking about the same thing. Your paragraphs, your content, your blog posts, those are all huge as well. Your keywords, key phrases, as I mentioned, should be everywhere across your website. So it's hugely important that even just in the paragraphs, the way you talk about your brand or anything like that, you want to try to find a way to incorporate keywords in there as well. Naturally so, you're probably thinking as a next step with SEO, as you should be thinking about a content strategy. Absolutely. And so when you know what types of keywords that you're trying to rank for, think about your content strategy as well. Your content strategy should probably play into the different types of keywords that you're ranking for, right? That would make sense. If you're putting together resources for men's jewelry, of course, no matter what you do, you want to make sure that your content is focused around that. If I'm trying to rank for men's jewelry and suddenly I start to write topics about women's clothing, then that's completely irrelevant and, of course, is going to miss the mark. And as I had also mentioned there, images are hugely important. Images are important for two slightly different reasons. Number one, the file name, hugely important. You want to put your keywords in there if you can. My recommendation as well is when it comes to the naming of your files, you always want to use dashes. A dash, if I like men's dash jewelry, Google will read that dash as a space and see those as two different words. Don't use underscores and don't put those words all smushed up together into one word because ultimately Google is not even going to be able to read that. And you also want to use the alt tags for your images as well. This is a little bit of a challenge because ultimately an alt tag is meant to describe an image. An alt tag should only ever be present on an image when it's non-decorative. And the reason for that is if I'm somebody with visual impairment and I have some accessibility tools that help me see the digital web, that tool is more than likely reading out the different alt tags for images. And when I hear that alt tag, what I want to hear is a description of the image. I want to know if I were able to see this image, what type of information is it portraying? These are usually very descriptive as well, like several potentially sentences long that talk about this such that if I were to listen to the alt tag of an image, I know more or less the gist of what the image is about or the message is trying to convey. Now my practice here is this, is that you want to use your keywords or synonyms for keywords in type of your alt tag, but keep your users with accessibility needs in mind. Definitely don't keyword stuff there and keep these especially human readable, because these are people that are listening to this read out to them. And if your image honestly doesn't provide any value to the page, or again, if it's completely decorative, just leave the alt tag empty. If you do that, screen readers will just naturally pass over that image and not read it. And while you might not miss the mark of getting a keyword in there, at the end of the day, your website is for your users. Okay friends, so I think that just about covers our keyword topic here today. I hope you're not bored of keywords, and I hope you've thought maybe a little bit more about what keywords really mean, and maybe you're going to go home tonight and check out keywords for yourself in a different way. Keywords can be really easy, seriously. Just type in a search in Google and take a look at what's out there. There's a lot of free SEO tools out there, such as the ones that I've demoed today, and we'll give you guys a link in the description below for any of those tools that you want to check out. Now, if you are a business owner and you need help with your SEO or potentially picking a couple keywords, reach out to Token. We're happy to give you a free SEO audit and help you get a sense of picking some of the keywords that we think would help do the best for your business. My name is Jordan Snyder. Thanks for watching our video. Take care.